Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. At this time, I would like to call the July 13th, 2021 Planning Board meeting to order. May I ask everyone to stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do any members have any conflicts of interest or disqualifications with any respect to any of the items on the agenda tonight? Hearing none. We have a quorum with 5 members. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Are there any changes to the June 8th, 2021 meeting minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes from the June 8th, 2021 meeting are approved. I don't believe we have any old business, so moving on to the item tonight, we have agenda item PB 21-12, Currituck County Text Amendment. Request to amend Currituck County Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 2, Administration, to allow a subdivision preliminary plat approval to be extended when a committed county utility cannot be provided. And Ms. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to the board. Thank you for being here this evening. This was one of several items that staff received direction at the board retreat, the Board of Commissioners retreat, to draft this amendment to address this change in the ordinance. And this change is to the ordinance Chapter 2 Administration, which is the chapter that lays out the standard procedures and the specific review procedures for development applications, including subdivision applications. This amendment does pertain to major subdivisions. Major subdivisions typically have a 3-phase review: preliminary plat, which is the general layout of lots, roads, and required features. And for subdivisions 20 lots or greater, that preliminary plat also has a use permit requirement, so it goes to the board and an evidentiary hearing, and that preliminary plat is approved, and the use permit is also approved. And so what that does is it vests the project and allows it to move to construction drawings, which are the more detailed engineered drawings. And at construction drawings, you would also have to have permits for various infrastructure extension, potential driveway connections and things like that from DOT. And then finally, once you get your construction drawings approved, your infrastructure, your subdivision built and approved, then you submit final plat, and that's when you can start, pulling permits and building within the subdivision. So this particular text amendment language was drafted to give an applicant that's relying on a committed county utility in that preliminary plat process relief when that utility is not readily available. They're ready to go towards construction drawings, and that utility is not readily available. You may let me just review some of this, the history of preliminary plats and the extensions in the past ordinances, just to so you understand where we have been with this particular issue. Back in '84, in that subdivision ordinance, preliminary plats were valid for 1 year with a potential 1-year extension, and then in 1989 the same. 1992 it was 2 years with a potential 2-year extension. And then you can see in the 2007 and 2013 ordinance, it was 2 years if the complete application for the final plat's not received. And that actually included a potential 2-year extension in 2007 and 2013. So it was 2 years with a potential 2-year extension. And you can see the note there that the board heard a lot of requests for extensions during that time. And so in 2019, amendment was drafted in April, was approved by the board to change the preliminary plat expiration date to 3 years with no extension. So that's where we are now. Just a little bit more history on that. Since the board was hearing a lot of requests to extend preliminary plats in that time frame, the 3-year date was a compromise. And at that planning board hearing back in 2019, Tammy Glave, our senior planner, said that, the change was required due to adequate public facilities being held up with filings of extensions. And the current use permits are 2 years with possible 2-year, and the compromise was 3 years with no extensions. So that's a little bit of history on preliminary plats and their expiration dates and extensions. So, this particular text amendment is likely going to apply to previously approved preliminary plats because of current sewer issues with the Moyoc wastewater treatment plant. And you may have noticed in your staff report that there's a little bit of background about Moyoc Commons, which received preliminary plat approval. And between that approval and then beginning the process for applying for construction drawings, realized that the flow could not be allocated as was committed during that preliminary plat process because of that special order consent. So no new flows can go to that sewer plant currently. And so that's one of the reasons, the main reason that this text amendment is coming before you tonight. So any questions on that before I go to the language? No? Okay. So here's the language, and this is in the subdivision section of Chapter 2 that has the language about the 3 years, and then it's pretty verbose and a little bit sounds a little bit complicated, but I'll try to explain exactly what it means here. So if the county cannot provide a committed county utility, the director may, on receiving a written request for extension before the expiration date of the preliminary plat, including extensions granted prior to the effective date of this amendment, grant an extension of the time period of the preliminary plat for a period of 2 years from the date that notice is provided to the applicant that the county utility is available. So, see if I can kind of make that a little simpler. Let's take a preliminary plat that is going to expire the end of this year, say 2021, and this is an administrative, director can approve this. If that request came in, that approval could be granted, and then that extension would extend it until notice is given to that applicant that it's available, and it would be 2 years from that date that the preliminary plat would be valid. So that date hinges on when the notice is given. Is that clear? Okay. And these are those text amendment review standards that we flash in front of you most planning board meetings. So these are the standards that you can consider when deciding whether to recommend approval or denial of a text amendment. And then also the board is required to adopt a consistency statement. And staff suggests that this text amendment is consistent with 2006 Land Use Plan Goal number 10 to properly distribute development forms in accordance with the suitability of the land, infrastructure available, and the compatibility of surrounding land uses. And policy PP2, that Currituck County shall continue to implement a policy of adequate public facilities sufficient to support associated growth and development. And staff does recommend approval of the text amendment as presented to you tonight.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Turner? All right. I don't see a lot of people here to comment on it, so we'll open and close the public hearing. Any more questions?
My only question is dealing with that language. If the county cannot provide a committed county utility, the director may issue that extension. So the director has discretion as to whether or not to grant that extension.
Yes, that's how it's written.
So it's a discretionary thing as opposed to the director shall
Right.
issue.
That's correct.
I see what you're saying.
And it was discretionary for those extensions before. It was for good cause, and it wasn't an automatic extension. So
There's other things that are discretionary on the planning director as well.
yes.
Are you okay with that language?
And just to be clear, the utilities we're talking about are water and sewer, right? Those are the only
Those are
county utilities that are.
correct. Yeah. Well, yeah.
So a case like the Foss property and the Flora property, where you have a major utility coming in there, possibly, that's not going to affect this at
No,
all.
this
That's
is
a
only
different
county.
animal
County.
altogether.
Mhm,
Okay.
correct. Correct.
So you're saying like if they couldn't get internet, that's not.
Yeah,
something
that's
to-
not, yeah,
That's not something that we're
or power, or,
talking, yeah.
you know,
would
anything like
snag
that.
up.
It's only water and county sewer.
County. So if it were private,
Which is,
this may not apply. This doesn't
Okay.
apply to that either.
okay, all right.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll open the floor for a motion.
I'm going to make a motion. I move to approve PB 2112 because the request is consistent with the land use and development goal number 10 and policy PP2 and the 2006 land use plan.
We have a motion? Do you have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And as far as I know, that's the only item we've got. So if anybody has any announcements, we welcome the new director.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here and serve this board. I'm looking forward to working with each of you and the staff here, so I'm very excited.
You as well. Don't let this spoil you. There's more excitement than this.
So I shouldn't expect this every meeting.
Yeah,
No, this could be a record, right?
this is a record for sure.
Well, it's a pleasure meeting everyone.
You too.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.